Good morning, everyone, and thank you for everyone who joining us this morning and the people that will watch it afterward when this show will be recorded. My name is Dagan. I'm the senior emissary of the Jewish Agency for Long Island. And we're in a Long Island Stand with Israel, a weekly update about relevant and current things happening in Israel in the past week. So what's on our agenda today? Then we're going to go over some numbers, just like we're doing every week, to understand the things behind the war. Then I will give some updates and background about things happening in the past week in Israel, going Lebanon, West Bank, and Gaza, and maybe some internal affairs within Israel. And afterwards, today we have Israel Nitzan with us. Israel is a very important individual that joined us. He serves as the Deputy Consul General and Acting Consul General of Israel in New York until summer 2023. And Israel will delve with us about the relationship between Israel, the UN, and UNRWA regarding the situation with the Palestinians. So again, Israel, thank you for being with us. So we'll start with the numbers. Today we are February 15th, 2024, 132 days of the Iron Swords War in Israel. We still have 126,000 people being displaced in Israel, 134 hostages. I'm sure that all of you heard the wonderful news about the 2 hostages that got released in an amazing military operation that conducted this week in Rafiah, which I would say was one of the proof that Rafiah is a very important city that Israel may or may not will have to go in, but it's very clear that Hamas is a very strong hold there, and the fact that we got 2 hostages out is a very good proof for it. We have a number of murdered and dead soldiers that we have in this war is 1,449 soldiers. Unfortunately, 6 of them were adding this week. The last of them was Omer Banjo, a soldier, 20 years old in Sfat, that was killed yesterday by a rocket was fired from Lebanon to Sfat. So unfortunately, this number is increasing every week. Wounded soldiers, so the Rehabilitation Department of Israel published the numbers yesterday. We talk about 5,500 wounded soldiers in Israel since October 7th. And the numbers were interesting. We're talking about 70% of the wounded are reservists. Think of people my age, 30 plus, with families, children that came to war and came back wounded. I think we mentioned it before. When we talk about Gaza, the majority of the wounded is from bombs. And when you get wounded by a bomb, it's limb wounded, and it's much more severe than weapons or bullets. So we're talking about 70% reservists, 21% PTSD. I will bet that the most of it is from the sights they saw on October 7th, 8th, and 9th in the Gaza Strip, and 42% of the wounded are limbed, hands or legs wounded. The number of terrorists that we killed was increased in the past week. We're almost in 10,000 terrorists. And again, when you hear all the numbers from the Palestinians, from Hamas, about 28,000 women and children, just bear in mind 2 things. First of all, I'm not sure this is the numbers that we need to rely on. And the second, that when Israel said that we killed approximately 10,000 terrorists, meaning we know that we killed them, because in Israel, just like every modern army, you need to report back after you hit a terrorist and you know that he had a weapon, so you can count on this number much more than anything else. Going to a small updates about things that are happening on Israel. So we start with the Lebanoni border. The war with Hezbollah is escalating every day. Only the past few hours, Israel admitted that we killed one of his Radwan forces, very high rank individual in Lebanon, but it's increasing every day. My city, Kiryat Shmona, suffered a direct hit 2 days ago. A mother and a child was wounded, and yesterday, Omer, the soldiers, unfortunately died. But one thing that's very important to understand about the war with Lebanon, we're not fighting the Lebanon's people. The people in Lebanon say repeatedly, over and over, they don't want to fight with Israel. The Lebanese government say they don't want to fight in Israel. But there is a terror organization called Hezbollah that's controlling the south of Lebanon and he decided to fight with Israel over and over again. And it's interesting to understand that even in 82, in the first Lebanon war, it was against the Palestinians. It wasn't against the Lebanese people. And the deal with Lebanon is they have nothing to get from Israel. Basically, the dispute between Israel and Lebanon started in 1923 when France was controlling Lebanon and the UK controlling Israel, decided on the border between Israel and Lebanon. And then when they need to put it on from the map on the ground, doing the measurements, they missed 14 points in 14 different places around the border where territories that are not clear if they're Israelis or Lebanons. We're talking about 10 or 100 meter tops, nothing too significant. This is the dispute between Israel and Lebanon. And this is what it's all about. And still, Hezbollah used this threat or this excuse to help him attack Israel and fight for things that it's very, again, unclear for me as an Israeli. But the paradox now is that none of the sides wants war, but we could very well find ourselves within a few months in a very hard war in Lebanon when things are escalating every day. And I will say it again and again, Lebanon and Hezbollah are the biggest enemy, much more than Hamas or other enemies that we have around us. The Biden administration with Amos Hochstein and France and the UK trying to get us to a diplomatic solution. I'll be honest, I'm from the north of Israel. I don't see any other solution. I think we can go to a war with Lebanon, but at the end of it, we'll have to have an international force that will guarantee Israeli safety and their ability to go back to their homes. So again, continue to follow up what happened in Lebanon. I told you, this is the most relevant thing that we have now. Going to the Gaza Strip. So there is three interesting things that are happening in the fighting inside Gaza. First of all, we talked before about the release of the 2 hostages in Rafah. And Rafah becomes the biggest question. This is the southern city in Gaza and the last city that the IDF did not enter yet. And the reality is that 2 million Palestinians are there and in the humanitarian corridor that we have in the west of Gaza, near the Mediterranean Sea. So it's a very big challenge to go and fight in there, although we know, and we said it last week, that we have 4 Hamas battalions operate in Rafah. We know that they took the hostages there, and we have the Rafah passage that we need to control in order to prevent more ammunition to go in and the hostages or terrorists go out. So Israel has a very big interest in going to Rafah and controlling those things. And now, because Hamas doesn't want it and the rest of the world doesn't want it, Israel and Egypt try to have a lot of pressure on Hamas to come to a deal within the next 2 weeks, which the threat is that if this deal won't happen the way Israel wanted, we will have to go inside Rafah, and it will be very challenging, but I'm sure that the IDF will be able to do it. And again, when one of our biggest missions to bring the hostages back home and to destroy Hamas' ability to threat on Israelis, I don't see any other choice. And releasing those 2 hostages from Rafah proved, at least for me, and I think for a lot of Israelis, that we have a lot of interest going to Rafah, and this is where they took our hostages. In the past few hours, the IDF conducted an operation in Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. I'm sure that you will hear it all over the world media, saying bad things about the fact that Israel is doing it. But Israel is doing it because we have a concrete information that there might be bodies of hostages, Israeli hostages and soldiers within this hospital. We got it from hostages that was released and more intelligence. So this just started in the past few hours. We're not aiming to hurt anyone or to destroy the hospital, just find our bodies and bring them back home. So, in addition to all of that, there was a conversation in Cairo about a possible of a hostage deal. We'll see where it goes. For now, it's stuck. So there's not really much to say about that. Instead of all of it, Israel and the IDF is moving forward, controlling basically 70 to 80% of the Gaza Strip and the Gaza area, including almost the entire Khan Yunis, which gives us the last city, Rafah, and we'll see where it goes in the next week or 2. So this is Gaza. If we go to the West Bank, relatively quiet. I think I mentioned it before. When Hamas conducted October 7th, they were sure that the Israeli Arabs, the Palestinians, the West Bank, Hezbollah, all over will attack Israel simultaneously, which didn't happen. And the IDF worked very fiercely in the West Bank in order to prevent Hamas cells from doing anything extreme. And for now, again, it's relatively very quiet compared to what it could have been. We mentioned last week the problem that we have with Palestinian workers that used to go to Israel, 170,000 every day, that now are unemployed, and we'll see where it goes. But this could be one of the things that will escalate things much more quickly. And internal Israeli affairs that will start this week, and I will suggest that you will follow up in the next week, is the recruitment law. As you know, in Israel, every individual that is over 18 have to go to the army, unless if you're part of several sectors, including the ultra-Orthodox in Israel, that used to get released from the army if you go into a yeshiva school. And now, and every year, you need to have this law all over again in order for them to continue not going to the army and going to yeshiva and learn Torah. I will not say my opinion about it, but I will just say it's a very big deal in Israel. And after October 7th, there's a lot of voices, both sides of the political equation, saying you need to participate more in the struggle. Learning Torah is not enough. And it could be a very big deal for the Israeli government and for Netanyahu to control and still pass this law in order for them to be able to continue learn Torah. So I would just advise you to follow up, and we'll try to bring more information about it next week. But it is very interesting to see where it goes. So these are our updates for now. Now I would like to invite Israel, that again will share with us about his experience and his knowledge about UNRWA and the UN. Israel, thank you for being here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Dagan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, great. So Dagan, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to join your weekly program, and I want to thank you and the whole Mishlachat, the group of Shinshinim for everything that you do for bringing Israel to the Long Island community. We're grateful for all your work, and I think it's also very important. I will also add one more comment that I'm not an Israeli official. I will describe the situation. This is in no way, any way affiliated with the Israeli government or anything like that. I think that you opened by mentioning the IDF operation in the Nasser hospital this morning with in Khan Yunis, and I think that this is, as the war advances and things evolve, you see a growing friction and growing criticism by different UN agencies to the IDF operation and Israeli policies in general. But specifically what happened today, and again, usually it's one-sided, very biased criticism of Israel. Today is not an exception. The IDF had to operate in the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, and of course the World Health Organization criticized Israel for launching this attack against a civilian hospital in Gaza. Again, ignoring the 4 months of experience of the existence and operation of Hamas terrorists inside hospitals, hiding weapons, including unfortunately bodies of Israelis in these hospitals. This is not new, and the UN agencies know very well that Hamas is operating within these humanitarian facilities. They also know the fact that according to the international law, you can actually operate in such facilities when they're being abused for military purposes. But still, the criticism is aimed only against Israel. But I think that above all, what we've seen in the last 4 months is one UN agency that is actually in the news very often, almost every week, More and more information is revealed, and this is UNRWA, the international, the UN Relief and Work Agency. This is basically the UN agency dedicated to assist and to support Palestinian refugees. There's more and more information revealed about UNRWA, the UNRWA Hamas connection, and they of course deny it. And we'll talk about it. But we have to say that UNRWA in Gaza is responsible for providing humanitarian aid, assistance, education, food, health, and social services for the majority of the population over there that is registered as Palestinian refugees. So what happened last week? I think that there was a major development when the Hamas strategic tunnel was found by the IDF right underneath, below the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza, and they were basically hiding underneath this humanitarian facility. They knew that Hamas knew that the IDF won't attack or cannot attack such an important humanitarian facility, so they dug their strategic tunnels underneath this place, and where basically they put a very advanced and sophisticated servers farm, computer servers farm, with electrical rooms, industrial batteries. This is a major operation, and as I said, very advanced computer servers. When electric cables came actually from UNRWA's facilities, supplied electricity to these Hamas servers, that basically made the place of the UNRWA headquarters as literally the nerve center for the Hamas terrorist army in Gaza. Last month, there was another important development when the U.S. and many other Western countries suspended the funding of UNRWA in light of information that at least 12 UNRWA employees were involved in the actual murdering and massacre of October 7th in Israel. But I think that what we should say is that UNRWA is UNRWA's problem is much more than these technical, local incidents. I describe the problem of UNRWA as out of the frying pan into the fire, when yes, UNRWA provides humanitarian aid, UNRWA provides education, but the problem is a much bigger problem related to the Palestinian claim of return, related to perpetuating this problem that started in 1948, and a very politically biased work done, including advocacy against Israel, done by UNRWA. A little about UNRWA. It was established in 1949, 75 years ago, by the UN General Assembly, basically to provide relief for the refugees from the war in 1948. There were about 700,000 registered Palestinian refugees in 1948. During that period, I need to mention another fact, that there were also about 850,000 Jewish refugees in the Middle East who had to leave their homes in Arab countries and eventually were taken care of by the state of Israel. Now, since the 1950s, we're talking about the automatic majority at the UN. So the automatic majority at the UN is real, and what they can do is they basically can do whatever they want. So if they give the mandate to UNRWA to operate, they can actually decide what UNRWA should and should not do based on their political needs and motivation. So they basically, the automatic majority, the anti-Israeli automatic majority at the UN turned UNRWA in these last 75 years into an important tool in the hands of, at the beginning, Arab governments, and later by also the Palestinian leadership, in order to perpetuate the Palestinian refugee problem, and basically to validate the Palestinian claim of return, as if they, and I'm talking about second, third, and even fourth generation to the 1948 refugees, should return, have the right to return to their homes in Israel. We're talking today about 6.5 million people. So basically, think about 6.5 million people who believe that they should go back home to the state of Israel, that will basically lead to the end of the existence of Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people, as a Jewish and a democratic state. Now, based on I want to say one more thing about this. The Palestinian refugees, based on this automatic majority and the biased resolutions of the UN General Assembly, the Palestinians are actually the most privileged refugee community around the world. Again, we need to go back to 1948, which was immediately after World War II. During this period around the world, there were more than 50 million refugees, mainly in Europe, but also in other places. Only 700,000 refugees, the Palestinian refugees, have their own designated UN agency to take care of their needs. All the rest of the refugees after World War II were basically taken care of by the host refugee, by the refugee host countries. And since 1950, the UNHCR, which is the UN Refugee Agency. So which is basically its responsibility is to address the needs of all refugees around the world, but the Palestinian refugees. So UNRWA has also a separate definition of a refugee that is applicable only to the Palestinian refugees. Again, I'm talking about a population of about more than 100 million refugees around the world today. So there is a definition only for Palestinian refugees, and there is another definition for all other refugees around the world. It is a permanent status. You cannot lose the status of a refugee, and you can actually inherit it to your children. So now today, you have 6.5 million people who claim to be refugees, 4-year-old kids in Lebanon, for example, who say that they are refugees of the war in 1948. There is not even an attempt by UNRWA, and UNRWA, according to the mandate given to it by the General Assembly, cannot address the needs. Now, UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, responsible for assisting refugees around the world, have one mandate: to end the refugee status. A refugee is a temporary status. A person is displaced. You need to solve his problem, his or her problem. This is the mandate of the UNHCR. UNRWA does not do that. UNRWA's responsibility is only to provide humanitarian aid to a growing population, an ever-growing population of so-called Palestinian refugees. And you see the numbers. UNRWA is mandated to take care of 6.5 million refugees today that live in 5 areas. 5 areas are Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. But let's talk about Gaza. 2.5 million refugees live in Gaza. Again, registered Palestinian refugees. So they are basically the descendants of refugees from 1948. 2.5 million Palestinians live in Gaza, 2 million registered refugees. One should ask, if Israel is not controlling the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian Authority used to control the Gaza Strip, and now it's anyway under a Palestinian rule of this terrorist organization, Hamas, why do you need a UN agency to deal with refugees and provide them assistance under a Palestinian rule? This is another part of the abnormal situation that evolved in the last 75 years. So UNHCR is taking care today of 108 million people. Again, UNRWA is taking care of 6.5 million refugees. UNHCR is taking care of 108 million refugees around the world in 135 countries. The budget of UNHCR to take care of 1 million people is $10 billion. The budget of UNRWA to take care of 6.5 million people is $1.6 billion. So you actually allocate more dollars per each registered refugees. Employees. Listen, UNRWA is the best business. UNRWA is hiring 30,000 employees, most of them Palestinians. UNHCR is basically hiring 19,000 to help 108 million in 135 countries. Now, so today, many in Israel believe that this period, with everything that is coming out of Gaza, all the information, all the intelligence, the fact that you have so many stories about what people call collusion between UNRWA and Hamas, it's time to basically to face the truth about this agency. This is the perception in Israel that it's ever expanding mandate, ever expanding number of refugees, ever expanding budgets, because you need to help more and more people, and also the anti-Israeli political work. And people in Israel, including officials, believe that there is a need to seriously discuss UNRWA's work. People believe that including in the government, in official statements, that there is a need to seriously discuss the stories coming out about UNRWA's employees who took part in the October 7th massacre. Testimony by a hostage who said that they were basically taken hostage by an UNRWA teacher, an UNRWA employee who basically were guarding them and making sure that they won't escape from their hiding place and basically a prison apartment in Gaza. UNRWA basically refuses to acknowledge things that you can see in pictures in Gaza, coming out of Gaza, that Hamas looted its warehouses. They refuse to acknowledge that. There was a Telegram group of about 3,000 UNRWA employees who cheered and celebrated teachers, I have to say, the cheering and the murder of Israelis. So in Israel, people believe that it is time to acknowledge the fact that UNRWA is no longer part of any solution and never were. But actually, it's part of the problem, if not a problem by itself. And especially, again, the point here is that UNRWA is responsible for perpetuating the refugee problem, the Palestinian refugee problem, and the narrative of the Palestinian refugees, of people who can actually, this is an ever-growing population who demand to go back to their homes in Israel. If you know Arabic, some of the videos from October 7th, you see the terrorists actually crossing the fence into Israel and said, "This is our land. This is our land." Statistically, if UNRWA is providing education for 70% of the Palestinian population in Gaza, you can assume that 70% of those who committed these crimes in October 7th crossed the borders and said, "This is our land," were a graduate of the UNRWA education system in Gaza. There are calls from the government of Israel that the solution is to defund UNRWA and terminate its mandate, that all the humanitarian responsibilities should be transferred to other humanitarian agencies, as it is being done around the world. I need to say that we're talking mainly about defunding by Western countries. The United States, out of $1.6 billion budget, the United States is providing $345 million to UNRWA. Germany is providing 202, and you can understand that most of the money is coming actually from Western countries and not necessarily from countries in the Middle East. So this is an important issue that is going to keep us busy, keep all of us busy, and you're going to read more about it. There's a lot to be said about the situation in Gaza and UNRWA's work over there. But again, I think that we're, at least in Israel, the perception and what you can hear from Israeli officials is that this is the moment of truth, and this matter should be addressed as seriously as possible. So this is at least my quick update about the situation over there and some historic context. And thank you, Dagan, again for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Wow, Israel, well, first of all, thank you so much. I told Israel that I think he's going to be the most interesting individual that we're going to host here. So thank you for that. And I will say that UNRWA is something that you hear as an Israeli about this organization for a long time, but for me, it was unbelievable to read the numbers and the story behind it, understand who they really are. And there's two questions that just come to my mind. It's not for you to answer just as a concept. Just one, the question is there no boundary for the cynical way that this world operates? And why are we choosing to be blind? And why the UN and the Western countries just choose not to see reality the way it is? And again, it's not for you to answer, just question that pops to mind.
I have an answer about the first question. I've been dealing with UN affairs for almost a decade. During my diplomatic service. The answer is yes. There's no limit. There's no end to cynicism when it comes to the UN. So the answer is definitely yes.
Okay. And I will say that for me, at least, I think we're not blind anymore after this super interesting lecture. And we know what we're facing, and we know, again, what is the core of the issue, the problem. That the same organizations that's supposed to help are just continue it in order for them to have the ability to exist. So Israel, thank you so much. And for all of you that are here or will see us afterwards, I think that this video will be relevant in a week, 2 weeks, in a month from now, because this problem is going to stay with us. So again, Israel, thank you very much. Thank you for all of you that have been here with us this morning. And we'll see you next week. Take care and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.